feet. Under pressure, back shoulder throw, caught. Cornelius Johnson breaking it, still on his feet. Cornelius Johnson sprinting. Touchdown, Michigan, 69 yards.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
And that's picked off. Roadrunners have it. Need some blocks, and this could be 6. The blocks are made inside the 10, the 5, touchdown. Dadrian Taylor.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
If you're Tulane. Pratt going to take out his do-it-yourself kit and picks up the first down.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
In the Michigan territory, Stroud winds up, throws a deep ball sideline, caught, touchdown, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
From the 30-yard line, Singleton with running room. And then he turns on the Jets past the 50-yard line. Stays in bounds. They will not catch up. Singleton all the way.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
That's Cobbs in motion. It's Tagovailoa circling out of the pocket again and sprinting down the sideline. He's got Monk in front of him and a touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go. We start yet another week, the last week of July of 2023, and conference media days continue. We'll, in just a minute, show you what is left or who is left when it comes to conferences, plus a few other nuggets. An interesting article today in The Athletic by David Ubben on some quotes from those who used to be a part of at least what was going on when some of realignment began and why it led to some of the changes that we now see is almost a daily topic among college football fans. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Levi in the studio, so is Graham, and Garrett Ross runs the mothership. So here is the schedule for this week when it comes to college football conference media days. Right now, starting today, the American Athletic Conference, I saw Jeff Traylor, Frank Harris, among others, for UTSA in the private jet as they're on their way up to Arlington. Live, by the way, by Lowe's is right next to Globe Life Field. And Globe Life Field is the new stadium where the Rangers play. Atlantic Coast Conference will start tomorrow, run through Thursday at the Westin in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Big Ten will start on Thursday, end on Friday at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Conference USA tomorrow at Globe Life Field in Arlington. And then also the Sun Belt Conference, which has had some changes, the 25th and 26th. That's tomorrow and Wednesday at the Sheraton in New Orleans. And then once all that's done, then we move towards workouts in early August and eventually games some the late part of August and then the full throttle weekend in September.
The AAC has a really interesting space to do that, and I'm wondering how they're managing all that with Live by Lowe's, because it is, I mean, if you've been there, it's just a big, area full of bars and whatnot. So be curious to see how they're doing that. I do, respect the Sun Belt. The Sheraton in New Orleans is right downtown, right before you get off to Bourbon Street. So they maybe have my favorite locale of all of the places this week. And I'm surprised that the Big Ten and Big 12, and obviously I guess the Conference USA doing a stadium too, but using a stadium instead of a hotel seems like a bigger deal to me. And the SEC and ACC not doing that was kind of strange.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really put that much thought into it. I don't know why they choose the I guess, backdrops that they choose. I mean, yeah, you'd think the SEC, if somebody needed a stadium, it'd probably be them. But instead, Big 12, for example, uses that, and they go more of the hotel route. So, yeah, I guess it's just I guess it's just whatever suits your needs best. I don't really know. But yeah, it's good to see that there's some conclusion coming, at least in this one part of college football talk, and we'll get the last of these media days done, and then it'll be on to the final countdown. So excited to see what some of these teams have to say and what sort of some of the storylines are coming out of these events. But yeah, it's been a jam-packed July so far with all the other media days that have come and gone. Obviously, a very busy week last week, and should be quite a busy week this week. And I look forward to getting these all done up and then starting to focus on some games. Excited about that.
I'm sorry. There have been numerous changes. Various conferences have come and gone. The Big East in football, of course, evaporated. The ACC added. The Big Ten has added consistently since they picked up Nebraska and Nebraska back in 2010. The Pac-12 with Colorado. Now they're kind of figuring out first whenever they do get the media deal done. That was something I missed all the fun on Friday with Kliavkoff and the press conference.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What did you think coming out of that press conference? Did you listen to it?
I did. I watched it. I watched it live. It was at 9 or 10 o'clock our time, and I think I believe, Paul, I was reaching out to you because I couldn't quite get it on my app, so I went, what the hell? I have the Pac-12 network on cable, so I watched it live. Very uncomfortable. I felt like Kliavkoff did whatever he could, but you could tell that he was very uncomfortable. I thought James Crepea, who will join us today at 5 o'clock, opened up the can of worms when he followed up with a question about, we are purposely not announcing the media deal today so we can focus on football. And James, 2 or 3 questions later, said, that would insinuate you have a deal. And he said, I thought it was uncomfortable. I say this, and I know George Kliavkoff's making a ton of money for the Pac-12, but it just seems like that they can't get out of their own way. This is not about whether they're going to find a deal. They will find a deal. Whatever the deal is, will it be enough? Maybe it will or won't. I don't care. But I just felt like he was so uncomfortable. And the Pac-12 on Thursday would have been the time to me, had they had anything concrete where they could have released it on Thursday, which is what, remember, the Colorado president or chancellor told Sean Keeler, which, of course, that did not happen.
Yeah, I think he stumbled over himself unnecessarily, and the whole part about, well, we're not announcing it today because we don't want to take away the shine. I mean, we shot holes through that on Friday and said, well, you would have done the exact opposite. You would have answered all of the questions by announcing something, and you would have taken away all of the, well, what about her? Is this team? Is that team? Is this? You would have eliminated all of that, and you could have just focused on football. And if anything, it would have been the perfect time to have a mixture of that celebration of the fact that had come to a conclusion, and then also, turn your attention towards the players and all of that. So, yeah, I thought that was kind of I don't know if it was an excuse or what that was intended to be. But it was made worse by the fact that when it was followed up as like, oh, well, that's not, you're reading too much into it. It's like, so what are you saying exactly? You do or you, and like it was just very confusing and unnecessarily so. And I think that kind of put a bit of a black eye a little bit that, on those media days rather than it just being kind of more smooth sailing. Now, having said that, I know there's, obviously ongoing talk and it'll never end until there's actually a TV deal. But what do you feel about the state of the conference following that? Because I'll tell you right now, I don't watch that on Friday and think, here comes Colorado, baby. I think the exact opposite. I think they're all staying together. I think the TV deal is going to come whenever it comes, and I don't think anybody from there is joining the Big 12. I'll just say that matter-of-factly. And if I'm wrong, I'll gladly eat crow. But as bad as that was at a certain point, it didn't make me go, oh, man, they're falling apart.
Here's what I thought, that you really got no answers at all.
No.
None. And to try to say you're going to focus on football, that hadn't happened. And I know someone in the chat saying, well, we're tired of hearing about the Pac-12 and the media days. And I get it. I wasn't here Friday, so we're kind of summarizing through it. I spoke with many a people, from former media consultants like Bob Thompson I asked him if he wanted to come on today. He's in Washington, D.C. on something that is legal work that he's doing, so he's not available. And really, what has changed? Nothing. I thought it was an uncomfortable scene. And even some that have always said, well, everything's going to be fine. Paul, you shared today the story in The Athletic from Stuart Mandel, and even you could visibly, or I guess verbally or in words, see a little bit of that in another 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's just it goes and goes and goes. The thing that surprises me so much about what happened on Friday is there are highly paid public relations people at all these conferences, or at least I hope they're highly paid, especially if you're the Pac-12 PR person. It's likely you live in San Francisco and your cost of living is upside down in your whole life. But that could not come up with the strategy of just tell them exactly what's going on as much as you can. We don't have one. We're not sure what the end date is, but we, as a conference, have decided that we're not worried about it because we think we will get a deal done that is good for us. And when we get that deal done, we will talk about expansion. But between George Kliavkoff and 10 conference presidents, there has not been a cohesive message other than another 2 weeks just coming around the corner, where if the message from the beginning was a year ago when they said we're going to negotiate our TV deal is, don't give anybody a timeline. We don't know. Everything's in flux. We're trying to figure things out. So we're just going to say, it's going to get done. We're still working on it. There's so much going on right now.
And
we'll
stop
figure it out.
giving deadlines or timelines of weeks and or at the end of whatever month or the beginning of whatever event.
Yeah, and I think that's sound advice. I think they also kind of did some of that, though, but it got lost in the mess of the symbols, right? Like there were it's all going to be fine and we're all get together, but that gets lost when George stumbles over his words. But I'm glad to hear that from Chet, at least some of Chet, because I'm in the same boat. I mean, I'm over it as well, but to catch up, given he wasn't here on Friday, I was interested in his thoughts on it because I walk away, and I know that just glancing at social media, I mean, it's still all the rage. I'm not, deeply invested in it at this point, but I don't think anything major comes out of that other than it was just a bit of a misstep. But as far as I'm concerned, that all is going to stay together, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm like some of the people in chat, at least. I'm ready to move on from it and focus on football.
Yeah, me too. And then again, there is still discussion because there are other thoughts in the chat room about whatever the weekend might have brought. At least as of today, nothing changed since Friday, which nothing had changed since Monday, which nothing had changed since the month before. But how do we get in this situation? Remember, Arkansas left for the SEC a long, long time ago, right? And then you had a little bit of a trickle effect. Penn State goes to the Big Ten. And then really when the motherlode began, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when in 2010, I'm driving back to Tyler after interviewing with a job here in Waco, and reports all over the place that Nebraska and maybe Colorado would be leaving. There was even Missouri in that mix, whatever. So Nebraska's leaving for the Big Ten. So how did that happen? How did we get here? Today, The Athletic wrote an article about this, and here are some quotes from former Nebraska football coach, more known for what he did as a coach, but not as an AD, but he was there for a while, Tom Osborne. Of course, we, Nebraska, participated in the move that talking about the Big Ten to the Big Ten, and that was due to primarily, now read this here, to the fact the South Division of the Big 12 had entered into an agreement in principle with the Pac-10 Conference. The rest of his comment. We didn't know anything about it in the North Division. It appeared to be done until the Pac-10 demanded the rights to all of the TV revenue, and Texas was looking at the Longhorn Network, which of course came about when they had their great run and almost won another national title, and they weren't willing to give that up, and that broke the deal. One more comment from Osborne. That whole period of time was very difficult for the Big 12, and it was precipitated largely by that failed attempt by the South Division of the Big 12 to join the Pac-10. I remember that back then. It looked like Oklahoma and Texas, and maybe Texas Tech, among others, were headed out west. It was either a power play or it was either gambling or whatever, poker. But in the end, the Longhorn Network was the reason why Texas, and again, I'm not in the middle of those meetings. DeLoss Dodge was a part of this article as well. I have a quote from him on Something Else College Football. But I did not know, I knew that there was negotiation, but I did not know that it was absolutely just the South Division and the North Division was left out of any of that conversation, but of course they did find out.
Well, we were told that the reason, that was the rumor was, Stanford and Cal didn't want a religious school like Baylor, or they didn't want to, the politics in Texas and the politics in California are different, and they didn't want to, deal with those things and all kind of things to that nature. But ultimately, if what Tom Osborne says is true, and I have no reason to believe that he would have worse information than anyone else, I mean, and that's what he believed as the AD at Nebraska at the time, was that the Longhorn Network undid it, which is not surprising. And we knew about that, at least in Texas, joining the Pac-10 was never going to happen, or Pac-12 at the time, or I guess it's Pac-10 then, that it wasn't going to happen because Texas didn't want to give up the Longhorn Network. Reading through this column, it was kind of surprising to me that DeLoss Dodd says these really, gives you all these great details and then pretends like he was on the outside looking in of that when he was the dude who was stirring the entire pot. That was always kind of weird to me about how he presents it. But yeah, I mean, that would have been wild had that actually gone through. And it is crazy to think that a channel that no one watched for a decade, unless you were a super dyed-in-the-wool Texas fan, has caused so much upheaval in college athletics.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a year of reflecting on the Big 12's history, that's for sure. I mean, I think we've seen every little caveat, every little niche story, every little realignment piece possible on the Big 12 at this point. And, that chapter could have gone very differently, as you pointed out, and we wouldn't be talking about whatever we're talking about right now the way we're talking about it had that happened. I mean, it would be a wildly different looking college football scene. I mean, Texas wouldn't be going to the SEC, or maybe they would after 10 years in the Pac or whatever. Oklahoma State, Texas Tech obviously were supposed to be a part of that. I know Baylor was not supposed to be a part of that ultimately, or, I feel like something probably would have prohibited them. I don't think they were a part of that package, wasn't it? Oklahoma State, Tech, and Texas. Wasn't that the main?
Seemed like it,
yeah. I mean, Baylor would have been left out in the cold, probably having to go join the American or something like that, and, align themselves more along SMU, TCU probably same thing. Yeah, I mean, West Virginia, who knows where they'd end up and what conference they would be a part of. So you could go up and down the league, and, it would have been wildly different for everybody. So that's what could have happened but didn't, and here we are, and that's part of the reason why we are here is because that did not go through the way that it was initially planned. But, yeah, it'd be a wildly different-looking world had those four joined the Pac-12 back in the day. And, are UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten if that was the case? I don't know. Is the SEC still calling for OU in Texas? I don't know. Those are a lot of questions. We'll just never know. And, in hindsight, for all four of those schools, perhaps, that would have been better off for them, or perhaps, that not going through ended up being the better thing so that they all landed where they eventually did. Time will tell on that, but it is fascinating to go back and look at what could have happened and how that would change what we're looking at right now.
All right, so one more quote in this article from DeLoss Dodds, who was the Alpha AD for Texas. He also was at Kansas State before that. But he was asked about the future of college football. Money, and this is not breaking news, but money will always dictate things. But it seems to me, this is from the former AD at Texas, who always mentioned that UT was, that we are the Joneses, because he could. And they were. And in some ways, they still have that clout financially and with the eyeballs and all the other stuff, too, except just not enough success in football. Maybe that's about to change. But here's someone that understood the value of Texas and was a part of perhaps bolting, was a part of negotiating the Longhorn Network, which made a ton of money for UT, and they got blamed for it all, even though ESPN's the one that offered the money. Money will always dictate things. But it seems to me if there was an NFL type packaging TV rights altogether, it would probably generate a lot more money and do a better job of putting people in geographical regions. In other words, what he's saying is, remember, back in the early 80s, the NCAA lost control of the television money, and eventually it went to the conferences in the individual schools. What he was saying is, if they negotiated as a whole, like the NFL does, then you could have some sort of, this is the kind of money you're going to earn, but that's never, I can't imagine that's ever going to happen unless we do get a couple of those super conferences and they move forward.
Well, unless, yeah, and there's got to be different leadership in college athletics, or a different financial long-term goal, which would be like a czar of college football, which would mean breaking college football off from everything else and treating it like the different entity that it is. Like right now, it's governed by the same rules that track and field is, and it brings in, thousands times the money that track and field does. But it's governed and treated the same way by the oversight organization, which is the NCAA. So that would have to change. Like look, DeLoss Dodds is a brilliant athletic director and a true mover and shaker, and maybe the greatest athletic director ever when it came to growing his brand and growing his school. So I think people should kind of mine him for ideas. I do think it's funny that he kind of left out, or they left it out in the article. Maybe he didn't answer it, but he didn't really respond to Tom Osborne's, part of that story at all, which is funny. And he was like, yeah, well, it was a bummer to lose Nebraska and A&M. That kind of hurt. Well, like, they did that because of you, man.
Yeah, I'd like them to get DeLoss and Osborne into, it would have been nice to see them getting them into a room and what's the real story there? Because if you hear it from the Nebraska point of view, it's different than hearing it from the Texas point of view. It's like, it's Nebraska's fault. They're dang scholarships for walk-ons, and then on the Texas side, it was a Longhorn network, and it was. It's a he said, or she said a situation anytime that particular chapter gets brought up. So I don't know. I believe a little of column A, a little of column B, but it would be nice to just get that whole story out there. And maybe somebody's done a deep dive on that. I don't know, and I've just missed out on it. But there is always that underlying tension of still who was at fault, for what all ended up happening. And I don't think that'll ever go away between Nebraska and Texas. But yeah, it's interesting to look back on. It has, little to no bearing on now. And as far as this comment goes, that sounds all nice, but I don't think that we're actually moving towards where the Auburns, the Alabamas, the UTs and OUs now, or the USCs, the Michigans, the Ohio States are wanting to, help Sam Houston State thrive, or help, Iowa State be at the top of their game. I think we've gone the opposite direction of that, if anything. And so to change that back to where it's back to geography and making sense in one big old grand TV deal that satisfies everybody, I see no indications that that's anywhere in the realm of realistic. So, yeah, it sounds nice. It'd be nice for probably college football fans as a whole, but it seems like the most far-flung thing that could probably happen at this moment.
All right, 3:22. When we come back, we're also eventually going to get into some of the other conferences as they've picked who's going to win the conference. A couple of notes about Northwestern. A rivalry trophy now involving Miami and Louisville surrounding Howard Snellenberger, who was at Oklahoma for a short amount of time, but this is about Louisville and Miami and so much more. Joshua Perry, the Big Ten Network, is next on 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. How crazy is this? 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport totals values of $4,000 plus 1.9% financing for 72 months. How crazy is that? Or the 2023 Jeep Compass, get 10% below MSRP. That's right, these deals are hot just like our summer days in Texas. Remember, first responders get another $500 in savings. So come find the Jeep that's right for you and save big at Alan Samuels in Waco. Make this the summer sales event at Alan Samuels during the hot days of summer. And this month in July, get legendary 2023 Dodge Chargers or Challengers, SXT, GT, or RT models. Your choice with total values up to $2,000. Alan Samuels in Waco is the place for you to shop for your next Dodge. Shop the greatest selection in Central Texas and find the hot rod for you. Come by and visit the showroom at Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. See the demons and scat packs they have loaded the sales floor with. They won't last long, as you truly have the last call models of legendary muscle cars only at Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco, Loop 340 east of 84.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice cold drinks, hand stretch attached, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Chris, we're going to get to your super chat, one from Friday and also another one from today. We'll get to those in the next segment. We appreciate your time, and we're joined by Joshua Perry, Big Ten Network. They, of course, start their media days middle of this week, and there is the thought about what the future might be with USC and UCLA joining in a year, but they have to worry about this year. Joshua with Paul and Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Joshua, how much will USC, UCLA even hit really the word on the street so much at Lucas Oil Stadium, or is it going to be more about this year?
No, I think there's going to be some chatter about it. It's perfectly natural with those super ends coming in. I think a lot of the conversation is going to center around what's going on in the Big Ten as established right now, and obviously plenty of storylines people are going to want to dive into. You got the Big Ten East with Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Obviously, Ohio State, Michigan last year was a highly anticipated game where Ohio State certainly did not show up the way they expected to, and Michigan looked like the dominant team, both of them making the college football playoff. And then Penn State, a team that's supposed to be on the rise here with new starting quarterback Drew Aller. I think a lot of people are high on them. Michigan State and you know what they're going to look like this year. They had the 11-win season, did not have a season that they wanted to a year ago where they're going to bounce back. And then even when you flip it over to the Big Ten West, you got programs like Wisconsin, Nebraska with new head coaches. You throw Purdue in that mix that's coming off a really good year. You've got Minnesota, who doesn't get enough headlines in my opinion. I think they're a really well-coached football team, in Iowa and what they could look like, especially with this points per game that they have to hit. And then the one that I think a lot of people are going to have questions about, and it doesn't have anything to do with the football, is Northwestern and their program and what's gone on with hazing there, and of course how they move forward into a football season while also acknowledging that situation. Plenty of storylines I'm sure we're going to hear about the two West Coast teams that are joining, but plenty to talk about with the teams that are currently in the conference.
What do you think about Wisconsin and going to a wide open air raid type system under Phil Longo and how that will work in Madison in particular, especially in November when it's going to be a little harder to run that offense?
Yeah, it's going to be something I think a lot of people are excited to see there. It's a different style of offense, certainly. Luke Fickell, who's their new head coach, coached me when I was at Ohio State. He was the defensive coordinator and linebacker coach. He's an old school guy, so the run game is still going to be a point of emphasis for them. And they've got really good running backs. Braylon Allen is a guy that I know a lot of people are extremely high on, Ches Malusi as well. So they've got the weapons there at running back, but you bring in Mordecai at quarterback, and I know they're excited about his skill set. What they've told me is when they were playing him at SMU, they were like, this guy's a dude. We got to be on high alert. Our defense needs to come to play. So they're happy to have him and feel like he has the arm talent. So what I think it's going to look like, more wide open. They're going to get that football in all parts of the field, which is how offenses really like to attack nowadays. But when November comes around, they're still going to have that gritty Wisconsin DNA where they can put the ball on the ground and just run it. And I think they can have success doing that.
So, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned your connection there with Luke Fickell. I guess no surprise he's probably where he is as far as the head coaching, status of being at a premier institution. But what was your first reaction when you saw that it was Wisconsin he would be joining this past offseason?
It was a little bit surprising that it's Wisconsin. And Luke Fickell's a guy who's a Midwest guy, so obviously there was going to be a connection to a lot of those programs, and he would want to embody that Midwest brand of football, be in the Big Ten conference that he played and coached in forever. But, when Notre Dame opened up, it seemed like a natural fit for Coach Fickell. He's a Catholic guy. It's a program he's obviously very familiar with, but the timing didn't work out there. Wisconsin's a place right now that I think has made a commitment financially to their athletic department. And what I mean by that is new facilities. They made a commitment to Luke Fickell and his staff by paying them extremely well. And so I think that they've shown that they want to be a competitor. They've also invested in NIL like everybody else. And the thing that stands out about a place like Wisconsin, I saw this stat last year, and it was fascinating, but they have the most wins for a team who's never made the college football playoff in the CFP era. They've been extremely good, just haven't been able to get over that hump. And I think that Luke Fickell can bring them that consistency to stay in that level and even take a step forward. And I think that's where everybody up there is trying to get.
Go ahead.
So Mel Tucker in 2021, big season, 11-2, and then last year, obviously, a lot of disappointment, just finishing 5-7. Year 4 now for him. That first year being COVID, that you can kind of just sort of toss to the side for everybody. What are your expectations for Sparty and just kind of how they feel exiting the offseason?
I think they got to win 8 games this year to feel comfortable about what they're doing with Mel Tucker, and that's the reality of the situation. We've seen the highs with him, and we know that he can coach. He to me is a guy who is a grinder. He's a guy who's very attentive to detail. I love going to his practices and spending time with him because he does the things that you would expect a Nick Saban or a Kirby Smart to do. They haven't been able to build a consistent roster with the transfer portal, high school recruiting, and then maintaining the guys that are on their roster so they don't lose them in the portal. And that's tough. And then obviously playing in the Big Ten West, and that's going away next year. But that does you no favors if you're not Ohio State or Michigan, it seems like, as of late. So Mel Tucker, to me, it's got to be an 8-win season just to feel like you have confidence in what he's doing moving forward. It's going to be tough to get that done, but he's a guy who last year was sleeping at the office trying to figure out what the answers are. I think if they can get their defense to be much better, they can become a team that has more consistency. Their defense has been very bad, and he's a defensive head coach too, so I know he's been working on that. But I'm not expecting them to have an 11-win season like they did a couple years ago, but 8 wins would certainly feel like they're in the right direction as a program.
Joshua, you may not know this, but Tanner Mordecai played his high school football right here in Waco. We covered his games. He was phenomenal. He's been through a lot with Oklahoma and SMU. And he seems like he fits up there. He loves to go hunting, fishing, and all that. And I think he's found a spot or two. where he also can get away and not just play football but enjoy life.
Yeah, and it's funny, man, because Luke Fickell is that type of guy. Like, he wants a grittier type of player. He always used to make fun of me because he was a wrestler, Luke Fickell was, state champion, didn't lose very many matches. I was a basketball player in high school. He's like, I'm not too sure about linebackers that play basketball. Like, he likes guys with some edge and some grit to them. And I think that's where their program is still going to fall to is, yes, you can have a new age of offense. Yes, you have to become more modern, do things differently. You need to put athletes out there. You got to have some tough athletes. Like, these guys have to have that grit factor that makes people really say, when it comes down to the fourth quarter, I don't know if we can hang with them because they're tough. They did that at Cincinnati, and that's how they were able to beat some teams they weren't supposed to. And so you give him the financial resources at Wisconsin and the ability to recruit a better caliber player, and it feels like it sets up for them to be extremely competitive.
If Ryan Day loses to Michigan a third year in a row, will there be more chirping in Columbus than maybe there should be, given that that's really the only team he seems to lose to?
It'd be more than just some chirping. And it's wild when you consider it, too. I would never advocate for Ohio State to move off of him just, if he lost to Michigan for a third time in a row. Obviously, if you're an Ohio State fan, it feels like you're losing footing. Particularly you have in that rivalry, but overall as a program, it feels like you're losing footing. And I would say that's not necessarily the case. Ryan Day hasn't lost very many games as a head coach at Ohio State. I think it's 6 or 7, which is a ridiculous number there. Even with the loss to Michigan a year ago, they were able to go to the college football playoff, and they were right there with Georgia in the game that was really a coin flip there down toward the end with that missed field goal. Nationally, Ohio State has not lost a footing. You look at the recruiting rankings, it'll prove that to you. You look at how people still view this program from places that are outside of Columbus. It'll tell you how you feel about the direction that it's going in. The rivalry game means the world to folks on both sides, people in Ann Arbor, people in Columbus, and all around college football. You could look at the TV ratings, it'll tell you how much people respect that rivalry. And so, of course, it's not going to feel good if there's a third year in a row where Ohio State's on the losing end of it. I would also say that you can't make a rash decision just because of that game. You have to look at the program holistically, see if you're still competitive nationally where you want to be, see if you're still recruiting the way that you want to recruit. And then ultimately, you got to find a way to win that game, understanding that you got the right guy at the helm for it. If you fire a coach like Ryan Day, you have to ask the question, who are you going to hire? And I think that's a really difficult question to answer. They've got the guy who's been really successful, who has put together a program that can compete with the national powers. Now it's about, at the end of November, can you regroup the guys? Can you refocus and understand where your priority is when it comes to that rivalry game?
Josh, Michigan, I mean, it's a whole new world for them, or one that they've been wanting for a while. They won 25 games in the past couple years. Well, obviously won the Big Ten, have beaten Ohio State, made the playoff last year, and had that unforeseen loss, I think, for a lot of people to TCU. But obviously a lot coming back. I mean, how high are you on this Michigan team rolling into 23?
Yeah, I'm super high on them. They're my favorites to win the Big Ten this year, and it's because of the reasons that you mentioned. The consistency over the last 2 years certainly stands out. I think they have a fantastic coaching staff, top to bottom, guys who are really good developers. They go out, they identify top-level talent, they get it, they identify under-the-radar guys, they get them, they develop them within that program. They've been able to get back on the right side of the rivalry game, which is a big psychology thing, and I think that's the hardest thing to crack through as a coaching staff is not, can you go out there and can you compete with some of the other players? It's can you get over a psychological hump that you haven't been able to, and they've done that. But you talk about the returners that they have on that team, and the quarterback position with J.J. McCarthy, and if he can take a big step, he's going to be super dangerous. Just a great athlete with a great arm. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards in the running back room. You got the offensive line is going to be stacked once again. Could you get 3 Joe Moore awards for the best offensive line? Like, could you do a third year in a row? They potentially could. Colston Loveland, young tight end, who's done a really good job. Maybe some questions at the defensive line, who's going to be a pass rusher, but their schedule sets up for them to be able to figure that out throughout the season. Like their linebacker room, their secondary is phenomenal. Will Johnson is a great player at the cornerback position. Like, they've got guys everywhere. And so they should be favored coming into this year. And I think that is going to be a fun battle when you look at the Big Ten East, because I mentioned that Penn State's going to take a step. And we know the type of talent Ohio State has, and under Jim Knowles is a year 2 defensive coordinator. You think that side of the ball can get better, but Michigan's the team to beat right now. And just based off of the roster and what they got coming back, they should be really, really good.
Joshua, thank you for your time. I have one more question. I know you got to go. What are the thoughts, in your opinion, as a former student athlete, about the expansion of the Big Ten from coast to coast? Is that big of a deal? Is that something we hear about from academia, or is that a concern for you in the next year as things move forward?
I love it from a football standpoint. The season's short and you get some home games. There'll be some travel in there, certainly, but I think it's manageable. I love the exposure for all these players. I love the opportunity to put some of the biggest and best brands in college football together. So from that standpoint, I think it's great. They'll be able to manage when it comes to everything else academically and otherwise. When I was playing, we took a trip out to play Cal Berkeley. It was a long trip. We managed. We were perfectly fine. I know for the California schools, the travel is going to be a lot harder than it is for the schools that are based out of the Midwest. But, you got to pay the price when you get the TV money that's going to be coming around for them. What I think about is some of the other sports, specifically non-revenue, and how that affects them and how they get that done. And so I hope that there is a well put together plan to make sure that those athletes are well taken care of and protected. But from a football standpoint, I only really see positives out of it.
Tell Matt Rule we said hello if you bump into him. Of course, our time with him here, his time here in Waco with Baylor has remained a great friend of the show as well. Thanks for your time, Joshua Perry, Big Ten Network. Have a great week in Indianapolis.
I appreciate it. Take care, guys.
That's Joshua Perry, Ohio State linebacker. Like his insight and have enjoyed him. That's the second time, I believe, we've had him on the show to discuss the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think he's really good. Enjoyed talking to him, and I do think you can find buku storylines everywhere you look, at least here right now in this lead up to the kickoff in about a month, and the Big Ten's no exception there. Matt Rule in Nebraska didn't even touch on that. That's a big story. PJ Fleck in Minnesota. What do they got going on up there? And then obviously, Fickle now at Wisconsin. Mel Tucker needs to win. Ohio State, Michigan, as hot as it's been in a really long time. Penn State, the team that wouldn't really be a surprise, would still be a surprise if they jumped up, but a lot of buzz with Drew Aller. And yeah, that's a league that's got a lot going on right now. And, you saw some of the storylines with the Pac last week, and didn't get to see as much of those because there was a lot of talk about the media deal, but there was a lot of focus on their quarterbacks that are, a bunch of transfers that have found their way out west and how that's changed the dynamic of the league. And yeah, it's just fascinating to kind of unpack what everybody's, got going on and what we're going to be talking about at least early on. And they have no shortage up north with storylines.
Well, look, I think the Big Ten for a while, and this is largely Michigan's fault, but became kind of dull because it was Ohio State and everybody else. And now, you've got programs that are, you had a few that were stuck in the mud. Wisconsin hiring Luke Fickell is a great thing because they decided that, look, Barry Alvarez can't live forever, nor can his descendants in the coaching tree. Maybe we just need to do something different. Barry was great for our program, and he was great. We're always going to love Barry Alvarez. There's a little statue of him in the coach's office. Everybody knows that. But maybe it's time to change the philosophy a little bit. Purdue changing what they're going to be doing. That's a big deal. And looking at all around,
having Hudson Card at quarterback is intriguing.
And hiring Graham Harrell and committing to that in the Big Ten. Even throwing a little caution to the wind. I am interested to see what happens. If you've got, say, Purdue and Wisconsin playing in Madison in November at one point in a full-out snowstorm, and how those are the days you can't run that offense that fast because God is telling you, I'm not going to let you.
It'd actually be more fun to watch.
It would be hilarious.
Watch the air raid in a blizzard. Yeah.
But, those are things that excite me. I'll probably watch, not that I haven't. I've been working with you for a long time now, Smoak, and I've watched a lot more Nebraska than I did before, just checking it out. But now that Matt Rule's there, I'll watch every game I get a chance to.
No matter how frustrated it's been, no matter how, in fact, sometimes numbing it has been, I know when they play, I know who they play. Sometimes I'm working when they play, but I will keep up with them. And with Rule there, that's even more personally for me a reason to kind of hope that they do well. Other than the fact I'm a fan, I want them to win. But my God, I don't expect much at all right now.
And back in the 90s, they were on TV pretty much every week. And
when you're number one in the country but very high.
So I watched them a lot then, but also if it came down to Nebraska versus Mizzou in like 94, 95, 96, or just pick another random team like they could have picked up regionally.
Yep.
In Southwest Florida, they picked up Nebraska because of Tommy Frazier.
Yep.
Because he was from Bradenton. So everybody liked watching Tommy. So I watched pretty much every game he played. But again, I think it's going to be a good, fun league to watch. Jim Harbaugh's a weird guy, and I'm very entertained by his weirdness. I know that's like kind of a weird one, but I like a guy who can win a game by 37 points and still walk to the press conference and seem mad.
Yep. They got some new additions, Craig.
Brett Bielema in Illinois. I mean, they made some strides last year. I mean, you can't talk about 14-team leagues in a segment. It's just too many. It's too many to unpack, which is unfortunate. But he provided a lot of good stuff there and didn't even touch on Northwestern, which what are you going to really say? And that whole situation sucks. However, it ends up on the other side. Just sucks for a lot of people involved. Some people it needs to, but a lot of fans who are excited about the season finally arriving, and their media days are going to be clouded by talk about Pat Fitzgerald's exit and just what awaits them moving forward. So that's unfortunate. That's definitely not a season that you're probably getting super excited about at this point. Maybe football will take away some of the bad headlines for at least a little while. But, yeah, there's also that. So there's a little bit of a downer. But for the most part, a lot of fun to try and figure out. And we will see soon enough the real evidence here in just a few weeks.
When we come back, Chris, we'll have your super chat up and discuss it here on the show. And there was also one
Danny.
from Danny Reich Jr. He brought one up, too, on Vanderbilt football and if there's any kind of a split up into another tier in college football. This is, and we appreciate your time every day, 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace can help you find and do two things. One, they can find out what hurts you, what is in your hip, like mine, or what is in your lower back, sometimes like mine, or what was in your shoulder, used to be mine, and all of that, and find out exactly if a muscle is torn, shredded, ripped apart, or just it's a disaster, and in some way you're going to need surgery or something where your orthopedic surgeon or doctor can help you. And then maybe it's just not that bad. The Ideal MRI image in the portal for your doctor to look at and for you too, they will know, okay, maybe surgery is not necessary. Had a guy today that I met, he said he had rotator cuff surgery. He had shoulder replacement, needs knee replacement. All of that is something an orthopedic surgeon is going to find out. And if they need images, they're going to also recommend Ideal MRI. And if they don't, you do. Because also it's $497 or less every single time. It doesn't go up. And the average MRI is about $1,100 throughout the country. IdealMRI.com with Dr. Rob Maxey and his great partners, and what a business it is in the Central Texas marketplace in Waco.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, that's TexasBeefHouse.com, and joined by Marketing Director Samantha Duvall. Samantha, thanks for your time. There have been numerous holidays, and now it's just straight up the summertime. Your thoughts about some of the specials and ideas you have?
So we still have our hamburger special going on. We're going to continue it through the end of July. When you bundle our 25-pound ground beef bundle, you can get hamburger for as low as $6 a pound. And the same with our 28-pound Wagyu hamburger patties. You can also get those for as low as $6 a pound. All of those come with free shipping in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. We've got a lot of steaks online. People are buying up our brisket. Time to smoke a brisket. Good time to grill out. If you order and use our code SICK'EM10, you can get 10% off your order of $100 or more. And it's all grown right here in White House for a family-owned company. family. It's all pasture raised. We just enjoy what we get to do.
Family reunion, people going out to the lakes, or people just meeting or going out of town. Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements, with the members excited about what they see. New flooring, locker rooms have been redone, new painting, and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, with a new squat machine that will test your legs and their stamina. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, treadmills, elliptical machines on a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and welcome Nathan Roach. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro, the great Britt Cole, plus adult tennis lessons with Blake and Kenna, who are ready to take your game to another level. And the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website, wacotennis.com. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive next to Hawaiian Falls in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Super Chat, Chris, a couple of them, $10. Thank you so much. If you want to do that, that's great. You don't have to, but if you do, we appreciate that, supporting the show. Guys, have the Pac-12 schools given Kliavkoff their grant of rights to negotiate a TV deal? Yes, they have. They have at least verbally done so. Whether they've signed on it remains to be seen. If so, does this mean that they need to rescind their consent prior to a deal if they want to leave the conference?
Well, they've agreed to the terms of the grant of rights. So once there are rights to grant, because right now there aren't, because there's no TV deal. So once there are media rights to grant, they've agreed to those terms as a conference. But if they don't sign the media deal, then they don't sign over their grant of rights. Did I say that in the right order? That makes sense?
Yeah, you got a little confusing because of the wording, but you're right that they have agreed in principle to the grant of rights. Nothing has been signed, and obviously there is no TV deal to sign first.
TV deal, grant of rights, signing, expansion. That's the order. That's the order from Kliavkoff. That's the order that they're working in. That's the order. So the TV deal, they'll do that. They'll get that signed, however satisfactory or not that is. Once they get that, everybody's on board. They'll all sign over their grant of rights, probably for a shorter window than obviously the ACC, because they won't be stupid enough to sign that long term. Probably something that'll line up 5 to 7 years with other conferences that would then have their TV deals expire. That way, if there was ever to be, another move that lined up, that could happen down the line. And then, after that, then maybe you get your invitations to San Diego State or to SMU or whatever they decide, or they stay pat at 10. I don't know, but that's the order right there.
Number 2, Chris, thank you very much. The Pac-12 schools are playing musical chairs with their future. Pac-12 can't guarantee a TV deal. The Big 12 will only add a few schools, and with the music winding down, will induce panic.
Yeah, we're not there yet. I mean, obviously, there's reason to be concerned. George Kliavkoff said he wasn't the other day, and I actually, at this point, kind of believe that, because nothing has happened where that would certainly trigger that. But I do think that it's certainly got to be in the background a little bit for the schools, in that if their deal is not competitive, there could be people who get angry. And the other thing is things can shift really fast, and really fast in college football is even faster than it used to be. But you go over a couple years of people in a certain school just not liking where they are, all of a sudden that drumbeat will get louder. So we'll see how the schools feel about it all. But yeah, I don't think that's that point. It just, and look, it looks really bad because they've had really bad PR with all this. But there's only a couple people in the room when they're negotiating the TV deal, so none of us will know and have any hard facts until we see it.
Go ahead, Craig.
Well, and you can't, base everything on how Twitter's reacting to things. Like if you look at Twitter, the Pac-12 is screwed. There's no chance in hell they'll survive. This and that, and there's a lot of propaganda and just BS out there. And I think that goes for any subject that you look at. So expansion's no different. And I think that there's a lot of pressure, so to speak, that's been applied. There's a lot of, well, this team's that or this team's this. And look, I understand that, a lot of people started watching us because of expansion or because of realignment, and certainly we've had our fill of headlines. And I think there have been times where, there's certain pack defenders, which is just a weird thing to be, but, there's no chance ever whatsoever this happening. I don't agree with that necessarily. I do think there's been some moments here where, like, okay, if you're not careful, then this could actually sort of spiral. But I've never felt, it's gotten to the point where you're like, put them on watch and like this is happening. I've just never felt that way. It would probably be best for us to just get up here and be like, it's crazy, the house is burning down, everybody run for your lives. But you know what? Instead of doing that, I'm just going to be honest, and that's what we always try to be. And I don't think anything's changing. I really don't, as far as somebody picking up their bags like Colorado and moving to the Big 12. I don't get that coming out of Friday. And I understand how bad that looked with, Kleofkoff saying they had a TV deal sort of kind of, but then denying that sort of kind of, and everybody just kind of scratching their heads like, what did he really mean by all that? But I left Pac-12 Media Days, a little bit puzzled and a little bit, laughing a little bit at just kind of how of course it went that way. Like, of course, that's the way, of course it was supposed to go, where it wasn't completely smooth. But I didn't leave it going like, Colorado's coming back, baby. Far from it, actually. And, like I said earlier at the start of the show, if I'm wrong on that, I will gladly eat crow, and I'll be like, hey, let's talk Colorado in the Big 12. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't believe it's happening.
All right, there's one of the super chats. We just got another one, Lemansky, $20, and we'll get to yours, Lemansky, but Danny Reich Jr. If there was a football split, could you bring up programs and relegate programs? For example, Vanderbilt, you've sucked the last couple of years. Tulsa, you had 2 good years. If there's a split and there's an upper tier, Tulsa's probably not going to be a part of that. And I don't want that to happen in college football. But if it does, the conferences that right now will not allow you to mess with their own, and the SEC is probably the best at that, whether it's Vanderbilt or when South Carolina struggled, which right now they seem to be kind of a nice little rising star. That's what they do in soccer.
Yeah, that's what I'll just say. Danny, I think relegation is not going to happen in America. That's the great European soccer model. It's really cool over there, but no, it's not gonna ever happen.
Either you're in it or you're not, Greg.
Yeah. I just want to say there's no probably about Tulsa. Tulsa would absolutely not ever be a part of the upper tier in college football. I mean, sorry. And guess what? Baylor's probably not, and Iowa State's not, and Cincinnati's probably not. And I mean, you can name a bunch of schools. You could name some Pac-12 schools that wouldn't be a part of it. I mean, you could go across the board. And yeah, Vanderbilt's one that makes you go, okay, well, it makes sense if the LA schools are getting invited to, upward, so to speak, or OU Texas. But yeah, what about those teams that are just, weighing everybody down? But Vanderbilt's very prestigious as an institution. I mean, academically, and I know we ha-ha at that, but I mean, I think there is something to that, particularly for the SEC, and just their history and their place in that conference. And look, somebody's got to take the L's most of the time, right? Not everybody can be great. So I don't see relegation. I know that's been a long time talking point. I know Bill Connolly brought that up years ago, and that's where there's a lot of college football writers that love being Premier League fans as well. And so there's this whole crossover that you get a lot of this, like, well, it'd be cool if they did what European soccer does. And, if it was up to like certain college football writers, I think that's what you would have. And there would every once in a while, like Baylor or UConn or Iowa State or Oklahoma State or whoever would be the cute little darling that gets the call up because they had a great year or whatever. I think some people do want that. I don't think that we're close to that, though, because you just leave a lot of people out in the cold. But I won't rule it out ever because I do think the way things are shaping up that you could see that. I just don't know how the other schools are going to play along with being relegated and how you would sort of force them into that monetarily. Like that just, it's not you're just dealing with a couple, you're dealing with like 100+ schools that are all, have a stake in this thing. So I don't know if that'd be good for the environment of college football. And some big things would have to happen to create that type of a situation, I think.
All right, do you have the DeLoss Dodge quote? No, I want to go back to this one. This is from a guy that ran the probably top 5 most marketable, recognized, and also financially successful, and at the time, incredibly successful
I'll
in
have to
football.
get it in a second.
You didn't delete it, did you?
I'll go back and get it. I have to get it.
Okay, you don't need to get it. He mentioned that he wishes that if they went to that model of NFL, which they're not going to do, I can't imagine it. Here's a guy that ran like a mothership, and he was talking about how he hopes that they figure out a way to be able to regionalize geographically college football moving forward. Here's someone who is going to be a part of the Joneses, was the Joneses, as you mentioned, and even he now, reflecting back on it, kind of thinks maybe that's not in the best interest of everybody, that there's just like 25 or 40 schools.
Did you watch Oppenheimer before this and realize that building the bomb was maybe a bad idea? No, I think that, it is strange that he's got all these ideas on how to fix things when he was the guy who was, driving the truck through traffic that cleared the road. But, I do think that something needs to be that I think one of the things that TV is going to find, because if you notice, they've not made a lot of great decisions lately when it comes to spending money and programming, which is why they're in the mess that they're in. I think when TV gets too in the weeds about like it could be this and this, and if we take this numbers from this part of the country and these numbers from this part of the country and put them together, that's going to be huge. But what they don't take into account is that people, in Purdue, Indiana, don't necessarily care about what goes on in Los Angeles. And it's going to take a long time for Purdue, UCLA to build up any kind of a rivalry, and vice versa. So you're going to lose that regionality, which is what college athletics has been built on. And to go back to it and have some kind of bigger model, to me, would make more sense, like he's saying.
Yeah, I just think a lot of things would have to happen for that to come to fruition, and an expanded playoff is not one of the things you would do to make that happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think we're headed into that direction right now, but like I said, there's a lot of people that have schemed up or dreamed up what that would look like and how fun it would be to see, Wake Forest bouncing in and out of being relegated because they had a great year, so now they're going to play Clemson again or whatever. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of programs left out in the cold, and you can still get what you want with big matchups the way it's currently set up. Maybe not every week is Ohio State, Michigan level, but I think you get more than enough right now, and you keep everybody included to have their shot and to keep playing along, whereas eliminating and becoming the NFL, so to speak, that's going to take a little while longer to set up, if that ever comes to fruition.
Another super chat from Lomansky, and thank you very much. Love the show. We remember Hayden Fry bringing many of his North Texas staff to Iowa City. He had 2 other offers besides Iowa at the time. He's a Baylor football player back in the day. In fact, when he was there in 1949, 48, 49, 50 or so, Baylor was pretty good. They were 26-13 in a tie when he was there, and eventually was, yes, at North Texas, and eventually he was at Iowa. And his coaching staff at Iowa, and Lomansky, thanks for remembering Hayden Fry, his staff that he brought that at points at Iowa included Bill Snyder, Dan McCarney, Kirk Ferentz, and former players Bob Stoops, Mike Stoops, Chuck Long, Brett Bielema, and on, and Jim Leavitt. These are names of the tree, the coaching tree from Hayden Fry and Iowa that started what now you see at Iowa. And at times there's this, man, they're boring, but they win. And I know they've had a couple of things that have been tough the last couple of years, even off or inside the football program, but they win, consistently win. The problem is they haven't been able to win big much enough, but boy, Hayden Fry did a great job when he was with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Thanks, Romansky, for bringing up former Baylor football player, but also a great coach at Iowa and in the state of Texas.
Yeah, Iowa's had two coaches for the last, 60 years?
They're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Used to be Nebraska, when they had Devaney and Osborne and then Solich, and then when that thing ended, well, then look what's happened since that time.
Well, look, and I'm not knocking Kirk Ferentz's success, but if they don't kind of modernize their approach at Iowa, they might need to have their third coach that lasts for another 30 years. I think that's that's the model that makes the most sense in college sports, is you find a coach that you like and leave him the hell alone and let him, put down roots and all that. Now, with money and people leaving, but if you've got a guy who wants to be there and is good, then understand that you can't win everything all the time. And if you win most of the time really well, that's good and consistent and better than most. So, but yeah, it may just be time for Kirk Ferentz because he's, an older coach and might need some updating. They might need to upgrade the software there at Iowa for a little bit.
All right. I have been asked in the chat room a handful of times about UConn, any stories about them and the Big 12, whatever. We'll come back and discuss that with you in the next segment, along with much more that's in the chat, but also with what we have. James Crepia, he's the one that asked the question that everybody responded to, and everybody then saw and heard and said, whoa, involving George Kliavkoff. He's going to join us today. He was just so hammered with being at Big Ten Media Days on Friday. He was not available. We'll also check in on Brian Harmon winning the Open Championship and how he did it, plus more. Louisville, Miami, and their rivalry, and what makes a great rival occur. What do you have to have when it comes to great rivalries? All that and more. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive, full-fledged, full-service butcher shop with pork, poultry, seafood, and beef. Also, they have a full-service bakery, a bakery that every day produces fresh baked bread and kolaches. And whatever they may not sell when it comes to kolaches, they put them in a large bag, freeze them, and they have the freezer there for you if you want to take them home and then use them or take them out, defrost them, and cook them as you like. And on top of that, they up and down the aisles, there's 4 different aisles, basically, one on each side, 2 different long aisles, where you have anything from can of Rotel tomatoes to seasonings, sauces, marinades, pasta, chips, hot sauce, and more. What you need, they have it there. It's like a hometown grocery store the Bauer family has built at 425 Lake Air Drive. If you want to order what you want when it comes to protein, you can get that and then go pick it up at your convenience. Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, great for tailgating needs too, with charcoal, pellet fuel, and more at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Sunbelt Conference will have their media day starting tomorrow for a couple of days at the Sheraton in New Orleans. And they released their media poll. And James Madison and Troy are the 2 picks. James Madison, reigning Sunbelt champion. Also Troy, picked to finish atop the Sunbelt East and West Division. So there is that with the Sunbelt Conference. Of course, they've had some changes along the way, as has the American Conference among Conference USA. It seems like all of them have kind of like traded some chairs themselves. So there is the East Division, James Madison, and Troy, the West Division pick in the Sun Belt Conference. Louisville, go ahead.
Troy won the Sun Belt last year.
That's what I said, didn't I?
No, I think you said James Madison won the Sun Belt.
Okay, and reigning Sun Belt champion Troy picked to finish atop the
I think you said
Sun
James Madison. Troy won the Sun
I
Belt. But yeah, that's a couple of good programs, and that should be a fun league. I mean, everybody's been affected to some extent or another, whether it be actual movements or, just rumors about realignment, but they've been directly affected. And, you've seen some musical chairs in the non-P5 ranks a lot over these last few years. So excited to see what that conference continues to develop into. But you got some big-time, fun programs there with App State and Troy and James Madison and the like. So, yeah, looking forward to watching a little fun belts this upcoming season.
I right now, I would absolutely – I think I would pass. But if you ask me to specifically list every team in the Sun Belt compared to every team in the American, compared to every team in the Conference USA, it would take some grinding to get to that, because there have been changes. And then, of course, American now with 3 schools that are a part of the Big 12. Now, Louisville and Miami are going to play. They're in the ACC, and they're going to play for the Snellenberger Trophy. 2 boots. University of Miami, of course, Snellenberger was there when they eventually bolted on top of the scene of college football, shocking unbeaten Nebraska in 1983, 31-30, in what was a 2-point conversion tipped away. and then, of course, went to Louisville and had some nice success there for 10 years. They're not going to play for the Snellenberger Trophy. He was at OU for a short amount of time, did not have success in Norman, but there you go. And my question is this. What are the first two ingredients, and there are probably 12, but what would be a couple of the first ingredients to what, I guess, that makes a rivalry?
Well, this one, it's clearly one they're making out of thin air, which is fine. I mean, we're losing rivalries in college football. We might as well make some new ones. But that one would right now, to me, only really be the Howard Schnellenberger connection, because I don't remember a lot of memorable Miami-Louisville games, and I wouldn't even call Louisville Miami's rival or vice versa. But if you're going to compete for something and make it more interesting, heck, more power to you. The ACC needs more kind of fun stuff to it. Miami really only has one rival, and that's FSU. You know, FSU has three, Florida, Miami, and Clemson. So yeah.
What are the two ingredients that make a rivalry? I think there are 10 or 12, but what are a couple of the ingredients?
I mean, longevity for one.
Okay.
I don't know. Bad blood, I guess.
All right. Playing for high stakes. You don't have to do that. It does not have to be an even rivalry, because even Texas and OU, even though the last 25 years or so it has been, is not over the time. A&M and Texas is not. It's a one-sided rivalry, right? So here are some responses from the chat room. In-state to start. Two coaches with big mouths or blah, blah, blah. Appreciate that. Rivalry and competitive. Speak up for a competitive for something like that's big to win. So Nebraska, Oklahoma played for a long, long time, but that game for about 25 years, it seemed like 25 or 30 years, was for not that long, for the Big 8 championship. And then also for national championships, or having a chance to go play for national championships. Texas OU is not two teams in the same state, but they are recruiting or vying for the same recruits most of the time. And there's some bad blood. And bad blood. Someone's brought up you have to have a rivalry starts when you start to have bad blood, or you have to have fights or before the game. That's part of it. Miami and Florida State were not going to go kiss each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, it can be any number of things. It can be history. It can be bad blood. It can be coaches don't like each other. I guess that plays into bad blood. I mean, there's not one singular reason for a rivalry. So, maybe this trophy being added to the mix of an every other year game, because that's what it's going to be, will add some extra spice. I think it's cool that the boots that are used are actually his, apparently, that they bronzed. So those are actually Schnellenberger's boots based on what I read over the weekend. And so I think that's going to be, unique, and maybe throws a little something on there that turns this into, a bit more of a heated matchup whenever it takes place. But, yeah, it's going to take me a while for my brain to connect Schnellenberger and Louisville and Miami and the Schnellenberger Trophy and all of that. It's kind of a reach, but, hey, it's a little hot sauce on that game that otherwise wasn't there. And, hey, if it adds to it, then great. And, we'll see something kind of blossom, and that'd be cool.
Kim Coulter, 1, geographic location between one another, and 2, historical results.
Yeah, so this is just going to be for a trophy for a little while, because it really hits, other than
they don't even play every year.
Howard Schnellenberger was here, and then he was there. And he was really successful in Miami, and he was moderately successful in Louisville. And what the hell? Let's just do this.
Yeah, it just kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere. Maybe it's been brewing for a little longer than I think, but I even had to check myself and remember. I knew the Miami connection. I did know about Louisville, and I'm trying to think of the timeline with Oklahoma in there. Shadow Bearded, it's hard. I'd say fan bases hating each other, the other team preventing you from getting hardware of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something where history can make it a deal where you've played a team for 100 years, and so you've got that familiarity, but even still, you got to have some bad blood. Otherwise, you don't that's what makes the rivalry, is you don't like each other. You want to beat that other team. You can play somebody for 100 years, and it just doesn't really matter all that much. There's not any bad blood there. You're just respectfully okay, cool. But when it's Oklahoma, Texas, or Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, or Texas, Texas A&M, all those have some hatred involved. They don't like each other. They want to beat each other, and it's not just because of tradition or any of that. That adds to it when you've got a rivalry that's 100 years old versus one that's being made out of almost thin air like this one. But mostly I think it boils down to dislike and competitiveness because you're probably fighting for the same things. And I don't think there's one you look at that is a top rivalry that doesn't have hatred right at the top of the list. Florida, Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, Oklahoma, and it's all of them. Now, Nebraska, Oklahoma, maybe, which is not even really a rivalry anymore, so it doesn't even count. But when they were playing each other, how heated was it? Pretty heated, right? Yep. So, yeah, I mean, there's that, and it's also usually teams that are trying to win something, because if it's just a bunch of loser teams, then it might still matter to your fans, but I think the great rivalries usually have some stakes attached. Like Ohio State, Michigan typically has something attached to it. Oklahoma, Texas, not so much as, last year's kind of just a weird outlier, but normally one of those, if not both, are in the top 10. Or top 15 when they play each other, if not top 5-ish at various times in the 2000s. So, yeah, I mean, there's tradition, but I think mostly it's bad blood and stakes, and then throw some tradition in there, and you've got yourself a recipe for a pretty good rivalry.
The old Oaken Bucket, Indiana against Purdue, which is important to them because they're both in the same state.
Yeah, I promise you there's not many Louisville fans sitting around going, friggin' Miami. Like, there's just not, like they do about Kentucky, for God's sakes. In basketball, those schools don't like each other. They're not in the same conference, but they hate each other's guts. So, it's going to be weird. I hope it works out. I think that everybody, needs. I don't know if everybody needs a couple rivals, but it's nice. I mean, Penn State is in a conference, and when they came out with the new schedule, they're like, "Yeah, we can't figure out who your rivals are. You haven't been here very long."
Who's Nebraska's rival in the Big Ten? Iowa.
I think that's the one that they gave.
And Iowa
them.
dominated it until last year, and they had played before.
But yeah, Penn State has in the every year rival game. Penn State got 0 of those because a whole bunch of people in a room go, "All right, Penn State, who's your rival?" And they're like, Ohio State. Like, yeah, they've got too many. Like, keep going. Michigan State, yeah, I haven't played them enough.
And Pittsburgh's not in the conference. Yeah. From Justin R., this is unique. I remember when the USF and UCF rivalry restarted in 2013. Someone at UCF allegedly slashed the tires of the car belonging to the AD at USF when we played in Orlando. Well, things like that, some stuff that you burn a turf, whatever, you scorch your initials in someone's turf, that can create a rivalry. And a lot of times it's a rivalry, and so you go do that to the team that you're a rival with. Brigham Young in Utah is a hated rivalry as well. There you have that rivalry. And we're not going to get into all of them, but just ask the question because of that Louisville against Miami, which to me, I was like, oh, it's a rivalry. A rivalry trophy that makes no sense. Penn State, Michigan State for the land-grant trophy.
Yeah, I don't know about all the history of all these various little things, so I'd have to look into why they came to be and all of that, but it does seem like the Big Ten's got the bulk of the just random trophies that unless you follow it, you weren't aware of. Like, Minnesota's got this trophy with Illinois, or those kinds of things. I don't even know if they do or not. They might have like a paddle they give to each other or something, but it seems like they have the proliferation of those types of rivalries, or the abundance of those types of rivalries in the Big Ten, just kind of from an outsider's perspective.
Minnesota and Wisconsin play for the Paul Bunyan's Axe.
I said Illinois, but
but no, you're right. I think the Big Ten probably leads the way when it comes to that. All right, it's 4:23. This is 365 Sports. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, who's UConn's rival?
Who is UConn's rival? Is it Syracuse in basketball?
I don't know. I mean, they've moved around. They're in the.
All right.
Yeah.
So somebody on the chat room earlier asked about that, and I did not. I pretty much stayed off of Twitter for most of the weekend. I mean, sue me now.
By the way, 3 people said UMass.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
That wasn't why I was asking really, but hey, thank you for answering that. That's good to know.
So I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Jack or Robert. Somebody asked him about Smoak over the weekend about UConn and the Big 12. From a very highly placed person that I can tell you right now would otherwise not mention this at all. I asked, no UConn, not now, and not anytime in the foreseeable future. So whatever you wanted to ask about UConn, that was from someone that I know would know who would know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to kind of track where all the rumors and stuff like can come from with realignment because there's just so much craziness going on. I do think that like we'd all be better off if we kept scorecards though, and kind of kept track of like what is legitimate and what's just like being spewed to shake up the Twitter sphere or to create noise or to garner attention or whatever the deal may be. And that way if you see something you go, oh well, that person's been right more often than not, they've got a good track record. And so sometimes things just pop up and it's kind of hard to track down because you can't just throw whatever out there, right? And so I don't know what the deal is with the whole UConn story really. I know it was thrown out there and based on some tweets that I saw, made it sound like it was imminent. I don't believe that, and I have no problem, like I said earlier, being wrong. But I don't see the need for one. I don't see the urgency for another. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I feel like it's something that is either a really good scoop or it's total BS. And I don't know because it's not my story to tell. But I know things can just catch fire, and certainly there was all of a sudden like UConn, and I'm like you. I didn't spend very much time at all on Twitter, but I did see that the couple of times that I logged in, like Jim Williams retweeting people, or I don't know if Bob Thompson commented on anything, but they've been brought up before. Like there was an article like a month ago when Jim Mora and I think another coach may have been interviewed about the possibilities of them moving, and they just said like the company line, like they just said, yeah, well, they didn't indicate one way or the other really a preference, I don't think, nor did they really reveal any information, and that was like a month ago. So I'm not sure what changed or what's really heated up, or again, if it's all just BS. I don't believe it. I don't believe that UConn's going to be in the league, this week or whatever. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm also not the one reporting it, so it's not my scoop, and I have no sources saying that, like, yeah, it's dead on. You just cited your own sources, and I tend to believe those folks. So, yeah, I'm not buying into that. I think it's a grab for attention or just a bad lead, but, there is a lot of that in this realignment game because it does get attention, and that's part of it that I think is fun, but I think it's also a part that can really drive you nuts when you're just trying to report the correct information. It can get lost in a lot of noise, and I feel like this is noise, and if it's not, then that'll be a hell of a thing to talk about here in a few days.
I think what happens also, you can throw something against the wall, hope it sticks like spaghetti means it's ready, or it could fall to the ground. No one really remembers all that. They remember if you get one of the 15 or 20 or 100 right.
That's why I feel we need like
to the top of your feed.
Yeah, that's why I feel like we need a checklist.
A scorecard. Yeah. I'll just let's look at this logically. If Brett Yormark has said that there's no rush to expansion, and if the Pac-12 doesn't have their media deal yet, and nobody would be in a position to leave that until they know, then why would the Big 12 rush to add UConn before adding bigger schools football-wise, especially historically, even if their recent success isn't that great, before the ones that could be available potentially in the Pac-10? Doesn't make sense to me, because everything that Brett Yormark has said about expansion tends to lead that he is watching out west first, and then when that situation settles, we'll investigate other things. And UConn doesn't do anything for them right now, especially when it comes to football. So I just wouldn't see them jumping the line just because the Big 12 wants to expand and Brett Yormark loves basketball. I think that you have to do things in the right order, and I don't think that that's how it's working in the Big 12 right now. And sometimes, and the people who say these things say them because, they get lots of, Twitter likes, and they're like, oh, great, I'm a real person now. I have validation in the world. Now I can look at myself in the mirror, and that's not really journalism.
No, and I think if that were to be the case, I sure as hell would hope that a Gonzaga announcement's following about 30 seconds later to make it make sense, because otherwise I don't think it makes sense to just singularly add UConn. I don't know what that does for you other than satisfy the itch that other than scratch the itch that Brett Yormark clearly has as a New York guy to be, sort of New York, right? But beyond that, I don't know how the AD sign off on that. I don't know how in the world they look at that and think that it's a good idea to just bring in UConn. So I call BS. Again, I'll eat crow if I need to at the end of the week, since it seems to be something that's imminent. But otherwise, yeah, let's think logically and let's see, I guess, how it plays out, and let's put a scorecard together to see what's what and what's just being floated out there for the sake of floating things out there. But I mean, there's clearly a lot of talk going on, and I'm just here today to say that I don't think a Pac-12 team's joining. I don't think Colorado's joining, and I don't think that the UConn thing happens, at least in the way like they're being portrayed right this moment. Could there be a 0.01% chance that something happens? Sure, but at least for me, I'll gladly be wrong. I don't believe that anything's imminent in regards to the Big 12. I think that they're hoping that something happens, but I'm more confident in the Pac sticking together after Friday, despite the blunders. And again, the UConn thing, I feel like that's a Brett Yormark dream and not so much the best idea for the conference, unless you've got some other package of teams that are coming with them to make it make a little bit more sense.
All right. Hey, Wet Blanket, it's good to see you in our chat room. Considering you have made comments about us force-feeding Baylor down your throat. Nice to have you in the chat room. I have the receipts. That's a dumb thing you said. Glad to have you on the show. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, and the people that I've counted on for, a couple of different needs when it came to my vehicle. I drive an SUV, had a little road rage incident. It wasn't my fault. I brought this up before. It was the other person's fault, but there was quite a bit of damage down the right side of my vehicle, and Richard Carr was the place that I went to get it all squared away and fixed up, and they hooked me up and got it in there quickly, despite the fact they've got a lot of construction going on right now that has really busied up the lot. You're going to have to contend with some of that, but it's worth it. It's worth the fight to get through traffic to get over to Richard Carr because of their terrific customer service and their great deals, which includes the GMC Sierra, which has reported a big increase in sales this year because, well, it's a great truck. It's exceptionally nice. It's well equipped on the inside. It's tough and strong where it counts. And before you buy another truck, drive one at Richard Carr and see for yourself if you want the best truck, you want a GMC. Elsewhere, ranked number 1 overall for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers, offering a luxury SUV without the luxury price. It's Buick. Right now, save $2,000 on a 2023 Buick Enclave, Encore, and Vision. Plus, well-qualified buyers get 2.49% financing, no payments for 90 days. And they also have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well. In stock, many under $20,000 if you're not looking to buy new. And the financing philosophy is over at Richard Carr, 100% credit approval always. They say yes when others say no. So check out their new, check out their used, pre-owned, deals everywhere to be had. You can also check out their award-winning service department standing by to keep you on the road. Go see their service specialist, set an appointment for quick and reliable repair. Check out the business that's been in business for 24 years in Central Texas and built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
This is 365 Sports. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Squirrel Williams, Craig Williams. Remember him, the running back at Baylor? He was going to transfer to Louisiana Tech. He has been hired as a running backs coach at Crosby High School. I think did I send that to you? There's the tweet down at the below. Cougar Nation, Craig Williams, he did transfer to Louisiana Tech, has decided he's going to continue his life as a football coach at Crosby High School. Also, Northwestern, yet more information, including a volleyball coach who mentioned that she is going to sue Northwestern University for what had happened to her when she was on campus. There's also allegations about an assistant coach who was doing some workout with a player who then was called out, and he had to go through what they called the running. So Northwestern, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper throughout what's happening with Northwestern. Adam Rittenberg had that story. Also, today, John McClain with an interesting note about the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are going to wear the old Houston Oilers uniforms, the throwback, in a couple of different games, including one of them against the Houston Oilers. John will join us tomorrow on 365 Sports. Back in a moment. This is 365 Sports, and I'm David Smoak.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB, your bank for life, is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.